Hello out there, all of my printmaking friends. Today we're going to look at how to make an image on a thin plexiglass plate to use for dry point. So this is an alternative dry point process. It's sort of like a monoprint. This is something to think about as you're doing sort of DIY projects away from the studio without a press. I think sometimes this gets overlooked, that people assume that you need to have a press to do this. So I'm going to show you an alternate way to do a dry point on plexiglass using spoon pressure as opposed to using a press. Because this is dry point and not etching or engraving, the lines aren't really recessed. It's actually a double burr that gets kicked up. So if you scratch the lines should be held by the ink itself. So it shouldn't necessarily be difficult to print this by wiping it and then using a spoon on the paper. Whereas if it was an etching or an intaglio or an engraving, it would be really difficult to print it because that information is lower and it'd be really difficult to push the paper into the matrix enough to print it. So the first thing I'm going to show you is using this. Those of you that I sent home with a packet, you have this lining on both sides. You want to peel that plastic off of both sides. What's nice about this is it's see-through, so you can work on your drawing on one side. You can trace, and then you can see it on the other side. So what that does is really handy because it will flip the image for us. Hope everyone's holding up okay out there. I know myself personally, I'm getting a little bored. It's a little bit restless in the house. If you're a little bit like me and you're an extrovert, it's difficult missing interaction. So hopefully you guys are hanging in there. I have this beautiful image of this armadillo that I'm going to trace, and I'm going to trace it on the back of this with Sharpie. So I'm just going to draw out this image here. I'm going to do this quickly to not take too much time. And I'll probably add a little bit more detail in the dry pointing process to add texture to it. So I'm basically just giving myself an outline of where the information is, and then I can give myself more detail as I'm using the dry point needle to scratch lines. So basically what I've given myself is the contour drawing. So I had, voila, you can almost see me through it. Fancy Mr. Armadillo here that I traced on here. And part 2 of this video, I'll show you how to needle the plate, which essentially is, in the old school, we'd think about using, in a studio. If you have access to this, it is a dry point needle. You can also use it for etching when you're needling the plate. But if you don't have this, because this is somewhat kind of an expensive tool, like $15, $18 for something like this, and it's very specialty oriented, something that you might have around the house that works as well. A thumbtack, do you see this? So I dropped it. So a standard thumbtack that is sharp. Make sure it's not smooth on one end. Sometimes it's rounded. Make sure it kind of like has a little bit of a scratchiness to it. And we can use that to, you hear that? We can use that to scratch the line. And the key is that you really do want to scratch as you work on this plate. Another thing that you might use is a screw. So this is a screw here wrapped in painter's tape, so that way you don't have the threads pushing on your hand. And we can use this, you hear that noise, to scratch the lines here. So if I'm taking my image and I'm working on this spot right here, we can use this. And again, this is on the back side. So I have Sharpie on this side and my drawing is facing this way. But when I flip it on the front side and the Sharpie's on the back, he's facing the other way, which is great because when I print this, it'll be flipped back and it'll be the correct orientation of my original image. That's what's nice about this being see-through or transparent. So you're basically scratching all of these lines that you want to print, and they will hold ink. And if they are truly scratched, the ink will stick to them, and the smooth areas, the plexiglass, will kind of resist or polish off and cleanly wipe the non-image areas. So I'm going to continue to use this, and I'll make a part 2 so you can see the finished product. Another thought that you could use is an X-Acto knife. You could use an X-Acto knife, something you probably do have around the house. Same thing if you wanted to. You could take a roll of tape like so and pull a tail here, and then just so you're not gripping the sharp part of the blade, just kind of cushion it and wrap it around like so. So you're creating a little dry point tool here. So you're not grabbing anywhere that's sharp as you're developing this. I don't want you to cut yourselves. So here I've got my handy dandy little dry point needle to be able to, and listen to this noise, give myself that nice double burr. And each of these lines will likely be a different weight or a different kind of character to each of the lines. So you can explore and see which one you prefer the best. We've got a tack, we've got the X-Acto knife, we've got a screw that again has kind of a sharp edge. It's not one of those blunt ones, so check. This is a drywall screw. It works really nice. Or you could use a traditional etching needle. So I'm going to continue to develop this image and scratch on it. Signing off, peace out, and in a bit I'll show you another video of how to print our Drypoint monoprint plexiglass plates. So signing off.